One
What about is like futuristic,
I
kind
think
of
it's
like
some sort of
sci-fi thing.
Oh.
I can't wait
I've
to
seen
see
a
that
trailer
movie,
on
but
it.
I want to read the book.
I read the book and I read half of it in Surgeon, but then I got
I read
distracted.
it, guys.
It's pretty good. It's kind of a teenager book in disguise.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure
it has a lot of like underlying themes that are pretty deep.
Yeah.
So
It's probably you gotta get past all the
it's
teenagers.
like a mix of. Have you ever seen The Village? Okay, well it's a mix of that.
What do you mean by
and
teenage
stuff.
stuff?
It's basically a utopian society.
Yeah, just
What do you mean by teenage stuff?
drama.
Yeah.
What's your reason?
It was really great. I ended up liking it more than I liked Grace, which is weird because I never thought I'd like want to go away to college. But it ended up making more sense for what I want to do.
Oh, that's good.
And it's actually, you don't pay tuition there because like if you have a Bible degree, you don't make money, so you can't really
yeah.
afford to have debt.
Yeah.
So you just pay room and board. Like 3 years of Grace is as expensive as 1 year of me.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's a lot less expensive. It's just the living costs in Chicago.
She said it backwards, but.
Yeah, okay. I'm like,
One of them.
okay.
Right.
You said serious grades is like, this is. Where's the list? Oh, I'm back here.
The other way.
way.
Glad you got that. It's early.
I mean,
So are you gonna study something like Bible?
I'm probably gonna, well, no matter what you do, you have to double major in biblical studies. And so I'll probably do a pre-counseling major and then biblical studies because like the more I thought about it, I don't really want to work in an office. But I want to use like the knowledge you would get from counseling as an asset in ministry. So that's probably what I'll do. Who knows, though, well, I don't know.
is it your, like, is it Protestant related or?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a book that even developed Christian.
Okay, morning guys. We'll go ahead and start out with, we have 2 current events from last week left over. Paige and Marnay, do you have your current
I
event?
totally forgot about that.
Okay,
I'm so
tomorrow
sorry.
then. Tomorrow then. Marnay, do you want to go ahead and look at yours with me?
Yeah.
All right. And then I have just a few more points, and a couple of points to discuss with the section.
Do I have to go all the way up there?
Yes. Everybody else does.
Poor child.
Yeah.
To start off the morning at a really gloomy mood, there was a shooting in Jacksonville, Florida at a gas station, and like the whole like name of this thing was that the defendant in a loud music murder trial says he was crazy with grief after killing. And it was, the shooter was Michael Dunn, and like he wasn't like some crazy teen or anything. He was just like, you know, like an average man, like with his wife, and they stopped at the gas station. And so these teenagers were like playing really loud music, and he asked them like to turn it down. And they're like, they kind of did, and then they like, he heard like profanities at him, and he was like, oh, they're saying that about me. And then they like, I guess they kind of got angry and started approaching him, and he was like, are you the ones that are saying that about me? And then like apparently like one of the teenagers, the one that was shot and got killed, who was named Jordan Davis, apparently he like picked up a crowbar or something, and so yeah, Michael Dunn got his gun and shot him. So really interesting. Yeah, that's what he's like claiming, and but there is a lot of controversy over whether the kid even picked up anything. So that's the thing. Actually it happened in November of 2012, but it's coming to trial now. And yeah, he's saying that in a defense. Actually, he pleads not guilty, but the dude's dead, and so there's like this huge case, and they have like all of this stuff to go through, and it's really weird.
Very good. comments or questions about this? Have you heard about this? Yeah, Aaron?
You think people would be smart enough not to shoot something at a gas station?
Oh,
One
right.
move and
Yeah, that's true.
When it was in
That's
like
true.
daylight and there was a lot of witnesses, so.
Yeah, I think, Aaron, you're talking about the possibility of explosion, right?
yeah.
Yeah, just the science behind it, yeah. And also stupid because there tend to be a lot of people there, but, bad to fire a gun anywhere, but especially in gas stations. Yeah, Holly?
I just don't think it's necessary to take out a gun and shoot someone if you, it's one thing if he actually like attacked or was going to attack the man, but I don't think that, honestly, personally, it doesn't sound like to me that he was defending himself. I think he did it out of anger, and it probably doesn't help that the kids are black, so,
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
true.
don't know.
That's true.
I think also even if it wasn't anything about, like, the fact they were black in his mind, that's gonna come up.
Right.
And that'll end up being a problem, which isn't gonna help him any.
Yep. Yeah, very true. Well, it also asked the question if they had, Marnie, did they say anything about having like security cameras? Because most gas stations do now,
Yeah.
so that could be another thing if they, although I'm sure that they would have found the footage at this point since it happened such a long time ago, but. Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Okay, good, so then we went through everybody else on Friday, right? Okay, let's see, the last point, let me just add up one more thing here, make it short. Okay, so I heard a few of you talking about isolationism, and even though it was one of the terms that came up in the book, it really wasn't defined well within the passage, or I don't think it was defined at all. So I don't know if you were able to pick out what it meant just from reading the passage. You might have had to look in the back of the book at the glossary and see the definition, but the very word isolation, which you can see in this word, tells us what? If someone is isolated, what does that mean, Holly?
They are away from other people.
They're away from other people, yeah. So this, again, we have this ism, so ism implies that it's like a philosophy of some sort, or a way of being politically and economically. So it means basically that the United States, because of all of its interaction with the war, we're now trying to just do our own thing and isolate ourselves from the affairs of other countries. And we're hoping that other countries will do the same. What are some benefits to being an isolationist country? What would be a benefit, Olivia?
You wouldn't have to take into consideration other countries' actions or like how you'd affect them. as
Yes, yeah, very good. You wouldn't be the cause or like a negative effect. You wouldn't feel the effects of other countries' actions or decisions. And so within that, there are a lot of specific things, right? Specifically wartime things going on. You wouldn't be brought into a war. Okay, what would be a drawback, though, of being a complete isolationist country, Paige?
You don't have like the trade that other countries are like allies when you need help.
Right. So you're on your own. With you go into it knowing that you're on your own and you're going to support yourself. And should problems arise, though, that you will have to figure out a way to deal with it on your own. And also, it very much limits the economic markets. And you know, the last 20, 30 years, the US had been doing just the opposite of that. Like, we were trying to go out and expand our markets and get involved in other parts of the world. So we're doing the opposite of that. We're pulling back a little bit. Okay, so this is the early 1920s, the few years right after World War I. And so we're trying to, what we call, return to normalcy. What does that mean exactly? What does it mean when we're in a state of normalcy in the country? You can probably guess based on the word. Olivia, what would you say?
Like everyday life without the war and everything.
Yeah, everyday life when everybody's kind of just fixated, you know, on their own things going on. They're going to work, going to school. You know, we go back to the normal pace of things. Obviously during wartime, everything is very much shaken up. And, you know, people are making certain sacrifices and they're maybe stopping what they would normally do in order to help out with the war effort. It reminded me of this notion of normalcy in our lives lately this winter. Our sense of normalcy has been thrown off, right? Because we have all of these snow days, and so it's this weird, we've been in this kind of bizarre suspension of snow day euphoria, and then, you know, then you come back to your normal life. And in some ways, for me, it's nice to get back into routine and to feel productive. You know, obviously, for us, this thing that's taken us out of our state of normalcy is kind of nice. It's not war, obviously, but that's what we mean by that. We're coming back to being able to have our own routine and go back to the way things were before the war, or before the snow in our case. So during this time, President Warren G. Harding comes into office, and Harding was popular with the public because he was a very good-natured and positive man, and he was making all these promises to, you know, return us back to prosperous time economically and to kind of get everybody back to their old ways of thinking. And the problem, though, was that he openly admits, and there's a quote from him in the book, that he really doesn't have that good of a grasp of finances and really understanding what's going on with that. And so, as an effect, some of his head guys working for him in his cabinet were able to take advantage of that. And so there was a lot of scandal and corruption during his administration, during the time when he was in office. So that wasn't a good thing. The other thing was that in an effort to return the U.S. to normalcy, we ended up kind of forming some bad relationships, bad feelings with other major countries that we had been allies with. So, Erin, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
I was just gonna ask whether you go show my pencil.
You can, go ahead. So, two things that President Harding did when he was in office. The first one this was a good thing in theory. The leaders of the world, the big nations of the world got together and they signed what was called the Kellogg-Briand Pact. And they basically just went into it saying, okay, we're going to take war out as an option. So we're going to not even have war as one of our major policies. If need be, we're going to try to resolve conflicts in another way. And not only that, but they decided to disarm, meaning that they withdrew some of their naval bases, they stopped production of weapons and things like that. So they weren't so military focused. The problem with this, though, was that since everybody agreed to give up war, they didn't really have any way to enforce this pact, and everybody's kind of focusing on themselves, and so they didn't, it was sort of a weak pact in that way. The other thing that the United States did post-war was that they raised import taxes, really 60%. And so that means that all of the products coming into our country from other places, like France and Great Britain, we hiked up the tax on those things. So it was much more expensive for U.S. citizens to buy products from Great Britain or from France. But at the same time, we're asking Britain and France to repay all of their war debts, the money that we had loaned them during the war. And so they're kind of like, well, you raised the taxes on our products and we're not making enough money to give you this money. So the United States, actually, it's sort of amusing. We lent Germany, we gave Germany money so that they could give France and Britain money that they owed them during the war, and then in turn, France and Britain could give us money. So we kind of paid for our own credit there. We should have just paid ourselves, but anyway. Then the other thing that we did during this time is that we set up what was called a quota system to actually limit the number of immigrants that could come into the United States from various countries. We put a cap on that. And so again, this created some ill feelings with other countries, particularly Japan. We put a complete cap on immigration for the Japanese. And so those harsh feelings will pop up later on in World War II. And then we talked the other day about nativist attitudes, right? If you're a nativist, you're very proud of where you come from, and you want everyone else who's living in the country to believe and think and feel the same ways and adopt your same culture. And so it's obviously difficult to do that if you have a lot of people from various countries and backgrounds. So there's a lot of racism during this time, a lot of ethnic discrimination, I guess we would say. So let's see here. And okay. And that's really about it for that. Did you have any questions while you were reading through anything about this section at all? No? Okay. All right. So for tomorrow then, we'll do section 3, assessment 1 and 4. And tomorrow I'll also give you back your tests. I almost have them all graded, I just have to put them into the system still. So give you those back and your study guides. But that's it. You can go ahead and get started then on the next section if you have any questions.
have a question.
Sure.
I know you mentioned that we would have like projects for this section.
Mhm.
Do you know when we'll be like getting that information?
Let's see, what I'll probably do is, the project will more cover the next chapter, chapter 13, it's all about, it's about like popular culture and, pastimes and things during the 1920s, so, so I'll probably give you the assignment like early on in that chapter.
Okay.
So by the end of this week.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll have a good idea of what you want to do.
And then also, do you want to check our homework for today?
Oh yes, thank you. I forgot about that. I will come around and check it.